Amendment, co-sponsored by Senators Graham and Marshall, recognizes that Title IX's role in protecting women in education and in sports. Under this amendment, educational institutions would prohibit from receiving funding if biological males are allowed to compete in women's athletics. This amendment safeguards fairness for equality for women. This amendment will ensure that education funding in the bill is properly directed to schools who are focused on COVID response and recovery rather than pushing a liberal agenda. I ask my colleagues to support this amendment.
To be clear, this man, Tommy Tuberville.
COVID really brought it out about how bad our schools are and how bad our teachers are in the inner city. Most of them in the inner city, I don't know how they got degrees, to be honest with you. I don't know whether they can read and write.
But they're the experts that want to make sure that parents have no say. How do you decide what to do with your children?
They want to raise. They want less time to work, less time in school. It's just we've ruined work ethic in this country. We don't work at it anymore. We push an easy life.
A former D1 football coach who ditched his players repeatedly.
Okay. What's happening? I was a football coach. I dealt with more minorities than everybody in this building.
The way I was raised, before a football game, you stood to honor America. And after the game, you knelt to honor God. But today, those values are under attack. As your senator, I'll have President Trump's back. We can't be bought, and we won't back down. Weak-kneed, career politicians aren't tough enough to stand with President Trump, but I am.
Has teamed up with this guy.
That woman was out cold, now she's coming. See? We don't go by these new and very much softer NFL rules. Concussion. Got a little ding in the head, no, you can't play for the rest of the season. Our people are tough.
A man who says the game is soft.
They're saying it's dangerous because the hitting is pretty fierce when you're running that far, right? You're running into
it. Right. So they're basically lining guys up 5 yards apart.
Yeah, but somehow it's supposed to be football. And I played football too. I didn't particularly like it.
What position were you?
No, I didn't like it. I played tight end.
Yeah? You got Delaney Walker behind.
I could catch the ball good, but I didn't particularly like having some guy that was lifting weights all day long and came from a bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he sees me, and they were tackling hard, and I had a quarterback with that much of an arm, to throw the ball. It wasn't like, but this wasn't high quality football, but I didn't like it too much.
But also refused to play because he is soft. But that's not all.
One question I have to ask. You just retired from an amazingly and historically significant coaching career. How much did the current chaos and state of the law contribute to your decision to retire now?
Well, all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. My wife even said to me, we'd have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast, and she would always meet with the mothers and talk about how she was going to help and impact their sons and how they would be well taken care of. And she came to me, like right before I retired and said, why are we doing this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you're going to pay them. They don't care about how you're going to develop them, which is all what we've always done. So why are we doing this? So, to me, that was sort of a red alert that we really are creating a circumstance here that is not beneficial to the development of young people, which is why I always did what I did. And that's the reason that I always like college athletics more than the NFL, is because you had the opportunity to develop young people.
Ted Cruz, a man legendary coach Nick Saban appears to support, invited him to speak on just how terrible NIL is for collegiate sports. Thus, news broke of what may come. NIL could change in the near future, courtesy of the executive order that was filed by Donald Trump. Front Office Sports did report on Wednesday that the president is actively working on the NIL order, which is expected to either establish NCAA-friendly rules to limit the earning potential of players, or at the least, establish a commission to investigate athlete compensation. SB Nation continues, the end goal in either case would be to support power conference schools in their lobbying goals to limit high-profile players from joining smaller programs due to money. To be clear, this is all about control. This is about the ability to maintain and not lose any more power on behalf of the power conferences and specifically the heavy hitter teams in collegiate sports. The NCAA and power conferences have spent years lobbying to regain control of that landscape. On Tuesday, a bill governing name, image, and likeness and other collegiate sports rules called the SCORE Act passed a subcommittee, but it still steps away from reaching the House. Front Office Sports' Amanda Kristovich has more. An executive order wouldn't have the power to grant some of the antitrust protections that the NCAA and power conferences have been asking for in Congress to govern the name, image, and likeness era, sources previously told Front Office Sports. Instead, the order could establish a commission to investigate the issue and report back best practices. To be clear, and to go back to the initial point, Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide, for example, he has been an outspoken advocate because he despises that players are able to monetize off of their greatness on their respective playing field, right? He is upset that he, the head ball coach, no longer has the edge in recruiting. USA Today's Dan Wolken reported the White House, after meeting with Saban, is likely to dictate the terms in the order to be signed by POTUS. Wolken adds, an executive order is not law. College sports and the NCAA do not operate under the purview of the executive branch of the federal government. Thus, any executive order compelling them to do anything would be legally questionable at best. And finally, any so-called fix for collegiate sports, made with the stroke of one man's pen, can be undone by the next. Then there's the fact that on July 15th, voting along party lines, the subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade advanced that bill, the SCORE Act, to a full committee hearing. Thus, it is one step closer to seeing the House floor. Surprisingly, a Republican rep and a Democratic senator from the state of Washington would join forces in a letter that I wish more elected officials would join. Via the Columbia, the Washington lawmakers who once squared off in the 2012 Senate race wrote that the bill would allow the richest conferences to cement into place the current power structure in college athletics that would leave only the wealthiest schools able to compete at the highest levels. The SCORE Act will only cause more chaos and damage to the college athletic system, they wrote, asking the subcommittee's GOP chairman and top Dem to postpone the vote until the defects are fixed. Cantwell would call the bill, and I quote, the national championship of heist. The senator said this legislation is a power grab of the two biggest conferences that will leave athletes, coaches, and small and mid-sized institutions behind. The bill would give the NCAA a nonprofit antitrust exemption. Rep. Lori Trahan, a Dem from Massachusetts and a former volleyball player at Georgetown, spoke out against the bill. She even tried making amendments to it, albeit unsuccessfully. She would state, there is no enforcement mechanism. There is no recourse right now for states or for individuals. There is a liability shield into perpetuity. So I want us all to understand that deeply before we go ahead, because it doesn't feel pro-player to me. It doesn't feel like this is an extension of athletes' rights. It feels like we're putting a couple of modest player protections into a bill based on what we know right now and not being able to revisit it later and not giving them tools to advocate for themselves. You should go subscribe to my new show, The Rick Strom Show. I'm going to be interviewing people from sports, music, journalists, authors, sports doctors. It's going to be fantastic. Please go subscribe. Thank you.